The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Wednesday, October 23rd. I hope everybody's having a fantastic week, day, year. Year's almost over. God, that's scary. Thanks for joining me this evening. I know schedule's a little off, lots of stuff going on during the day. Couldn't quite squeeze it in, so I decided to just postpone it to 7. I think tomorrow's going to be the same thing. Tomorrow will be also 7 p.m. I've got my first doctor's appointment after the surgery. So it's been a week. It's been 2 weeks now, and I've got my first session of physical therapy. I am told that is going to be unbelievably painful, so I'm getting ready. But that is tomorrow. So I expect, given all that, and given Puerto Rico and how everything gets delayed and everything takes forever, 7 p.m. tomorrow as well, we'll do a show. So that's that. I think what I'll be doing tomorrow, at least for a chunk of the show tomorrow, we'll watch together. I don't know how far we'll get into it because it's so stupid, but we'll watch a video that Patrick Ben David made about tariffs. And yeah, I'll critique it. Although, yeah, I mean, it's just an issue that keeps needing to be critiqued. And Patrick Ben David is a big name, big name. And tariffs are a big issue. And if people get this wrong, then they get everything in economics wrong. And, this is kind of Econ 101. And so I keep coming back to it. I keep trying to explain it. And I think Patrick Ben David does about as bad a job as anybody could do in trying to justify them. So we'll critique his justification. Let's see. We got a good start with some stickers. Neffel, thank you. Jonathan, thank you. Mary Aline, thank you. Let's see. Today we're going to cover the terrorist attack on Turkey. We'll cover Blinken. I mean, it's a little repetitive, but we'll talk about, in that context, we'll talk about anything going on today in Israel. We might talk about the Hezbollah bank, the store of half a billion dollars. We'll talk about Kelly on Trump. Kind of cool, kind of interesting. General John Kelly, I should say. And we'll talk about puberty blockers. And the latest about puberty blockers and the whole trans thing. And then we'll probably have time to talk about, I don't know, Elizabeth Warren on McDonald's, Obama on why the U.S. is so divided, Abercrombie and Fish, the CEO got arrested, or former CEO, not current CEO, wealth taxes, and maybe an example out of falling out of windows, and for positive story, we'll talk about sweet, not clementine, sweet protein. So we'll talk about that. Right, we'll see. Why is this not working? Come on. I need Apple. Apple, are you listening? I needed to release the Mac Mini, the new Mac Mini with the newest chip. I need that computer, and yeah, my computer. I need that computer because my computer's, I think, at the max capabilities. It's getting to the point where it's just too old. It's just too old. Just can't cope. So I'm hoping. I mean, the rumors are that they're supposed to release it this month. They haven't yet. But I'm hoping for either tomorrow, Friday, or maybe early next week. But I do hope that this month it gets released. I'll buy it. We'll get one. And yeah, things will be better computer-wise. Yeah. Why aren't you moving? Chrome is... All right, something bad is going to happen if I keep doing that. All right. Let's see. So where should we start? Start with Turkey. So there was a terrorist attack today in Turkey. The attack was on the headquarters of the Turkish aerospace industries. This is the company that basically makes Turkish drones. Turkish drones are supposedly pretty good drones. Turkish military uses these drones. The Ukrainians, at least in the beginning of the war, were using these drones. They're pretty sophisticated drone technology. And as a result of the attack of 3 armed men, you can see video of this all over the internet. 5 people are dead and 20 injured. The Turks are blaming the terrorist attack on the PKK. PKK is the Kurdish Workers' Party. The Kurdish Workers' Party, which is a Marxist-Leninist militant group that is based in like Iraq and Syria, within the Turkish population in Iraq and Syria, and has sought, together with other Kurdish political entities, has sought independence from Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. There's a large Kurdish population within Turkey and Syria, Iraq, and Iran. So after World War I, the Allies could have carved out a piece of Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and created a Kurdish state. But I don't know, the lines wouldn't have been straight. If you ever seen a map of the Middle East, all the borders are like straight lines. Somebody took a ruler and just drew straight lines on a map. But they didn't. So the Allies, after World War I, after the Ottoman Empire was dissolved, didn't. And the lines they drew split the Kurdish population across all 4 states. Now, if these states were free, liberty-loving, capitalist, semi-capitalist countries, then it would be no big deal. I think the Kurds would just integrate into society and that was it. But these are all statist, nationalist, religionist, Turkey being a little bit better, states. And the Kurds, these are the same Kurds that were gassed by Saddam Hussein. These are the same Kurds that ISIS tried to exterminate. These are the same Kurds that are being discriminated against by the Assad regime in Syria. And the same Kurds, so these Kurds want independence. They want out. They want separation. Now, this terrorist group happens to be Marxist-Leninist, but for example, the semi-autonomous portion of Iraq, which is today Kurdish, life's fairly good there, given their neighbors, given the state of the Middle East. So anyway, they've been fighting for independence, and once in a while, they engage in terrorist attacks in Turkey. This is an example. The Kurds were also very, very good in fighting ISIS with the Americans and were considered American allies. I don't know if the PKK was part of that, but they were American allies in the fight against ISIS. And in one of the famous phone calls that project kind of Trump's foreign policy, Erdogan basically told Trump, why do you have American troops in Syria and Iraq? Get them out. Why are they there? We've got business. We Turks have business in Syria and Iraq, and you're in the way. We want to go in and get rid of these Kurdish terrorists. And Trump said, and Bolton was on the call with him, and Trump said, yeah, you're right. All right. Even though the Kurds were the U.S.'s allies in defeating ISIS, and actually Turkey arguably was helping ISIS, Trump basically said, yeah, okay, we'll back down. We'll back off. We'll let you guys deal with the Kurds the way you want to. To hell with allies. It's just an example of Trump basically backstabbing an ally because he's not thinking, not because he doesn't think, but not because of any principled stand. Anyway, that happened today in Turkey. The response to that by the Turkish government has not been 2 weeks of procrastination, emissaries from the United States flying in and Turks flying to the United States and negotiating, and constant statements by the U.S. State Department and Biden administration about the need for a ceasefire and peace talks, and maybe the establishment of a Kurdish independent state, and Turkey needs to back off. No, that kind of behavior is reserved only for Israel when Israel gets attacked. No, in this case, Turkey, the same day as the terrorist attack happened, I don't know where they get this idea from, the same day, is bombing Kurdish towns and PKK positions in northern Syria in retaliation for the attack. 32 strikes from airplanes have been carried out so far by the Turkish Air Force, and they are still going. And not a peep from anybody. Not a peep from anybody. And no negotiations, no ceasefire, no delay, don't be too harsh. Give them a break. Be gentle. Which, of course, brings us to Blinken, the Biden administration's foreign policy. And Blinken was in Tel Aviv. We talked about this yesterday, meeting with Israeli officials. I think putting, trying to twist their arm and put pressure on them to, maybe moderate their response in Iran. I mean, this is the thing. The problem is that people within the Israeli government and people outside the Israeli government, but in the know, have been saying now for days and days and days and days and days, because it's been a long time. Do you guys remember when Iran attacked Israel? Was that like this year even? It seems like such a long time ago. And we've talked about this. Israel's still waiting. You remember that book by Dr. Seuss? Waiting for this and waiting for that. And waiting is not a good. Anyway, they're still waiting. But all these officials have been out saying, whoa, this is going to be a massive attack. It's going to surprise the Iranians how devastating this attack is going to be. It's going to be crushing. It's going to be massive. It's going to be huge. It's going to be devastating. And maybe that's the plan. But then Blinken comes along and says, "Oh, you got to rein it in. You got to tone it down. You can't do a big attack on them." And who knows what Israel's actually going to do? Maybe Israel does, but nobody else does, because it turns out, by the way, that the documents that were leaked were not indeed documents laying out the attack plans of Israel and Iran, but they were actually documents outlining some of the drills that Israel was in preparation for the attack on Iran. So, for example, refueling and the kind of bombs they're going to use. They're still bad, but not quite as bad. Anyway, Blinken was there telling them to lay off Iran, not to be too tough. At the same time, also saying, look, you killed Sinwar. The war's been going on for a year. You gotta cut a deal. Now, in order to have a deal, you have to have another side. And nobody's really talking about the fact that Hamas doesn't want a deal. Sinwar or no Sinwar, Hamas is not interested in a deal. And one of the main reasons Hamas doesn't want a deal is because they know that the United States is putting unbelievable, endless, nonstop pressure on Israel to compromise. So why would they cut a deal when they think Israel is going to fold any day now because the Biden administration demands it? Publius thinks Israel will attack November 6th. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's going to be this week. But I thought that last week, so much for what I know. Supposedly it was supposed to be last week, and there were weather considerations. So I don't know. Anyway, Blinken wants them to cut a deal with Hamas because Sinwar is dead. And then he's like, look, you guys have crushed Hezbollah. Cut a deal. It's time for ceasefire. They're so predictable. They are so predictable. It's all they know. So far, Israel has resisted, and claims at least to continue to be committed to victory and to winning and to defeating both Hezbollah and Hamas and to executing a massive attack on Iran. They're still bombing Beirut this evening. There were some pretty big, colorful explosions coming out of Beirut as Israel was attacking. So that's ongoing. Oh, by the way, regarding Beirut, I think I told you yesterday that Israel kind of told them, the Lebanese people, where the stash was, where $500 million in gold, in currency and in gold was hidden next to the hospital, underneath the hospital. So a bunch of BBC-led reporters went there today and looked in all the wrong places and reported back and said, no stash here. Israel's lying. Some Lebanese reporters went to where Israel actually said to go to find the stash, and what they found were armed guards protecting a door, not able to get in. Hezbollah wouldn't let them in. And it's like, yeah, that's probably where the stash is. But the BBC is out with the story saying, no stash. Israel's lying again. Can't trust those Israelis. So, yeah, not surprising. But I think the Lebanese, no. I think they understand. All right, let's see. So we did that. We've talked a little bit about Blinken. We talked a little bit about the terror attacks. All right. John Kelly. As I think everybody knows, John Kelly was a Marine, commander of the Marines. He was a general, very well respected, very admired within the military. When Trump became president, he tapped Kelly to be his Homeland Security guy to secure the border. And Kelly did the job at the border, and Trump was very, 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 very complimentary of Kelly's job at the border for the first year. And then after that, when his chief of staff, Trump's chief of staff resigned or was fired or whatever, he tapped John Kelly to be his chief of staff, and he was indeed the longest serving chief of staff in Trump's first term. I think he was chief of staff for a year and a half. John Kelly was obviously spent a lot of time with Trump. He was chief of staff. He was there for the big decisions, the important decisions. He interacted with Trump on a regular basis. He was a liaison between Trump and all these other things that were going on. And, we're talking about an incredibly successful military commander in the early days of the Trump first administration. Trump talked about his generals. I mean, he appointed a number of generals to senior positions, and he was very proud of that fact. You had a general, of course, heading up the Defense Department, Mathis, and you had generals in the what do you call it? God, I forget the name of the position. The National Security Advisor. And Kelly was chief of staff. So Kelly got to really know Trump. He has written over the last 4 years since Trump left office, he's written some pretty negative things about Trump. Over and over and over again, and things that have not been contradicted by anybody else in a similar position vis-a-vis Trump. That is, other people within administration, the first term, have not come out and said, Kelly is complete bullshit. This is completely wrong. He's misrepresenting the facts. This is not what happened. It's just not happened. And indeed, several of the other generals and several of the other people in national security positions, like John Bolton, have actually confirmed much of what Kelly has said and agreed with Kelly's assessment of Trump, which was very, very, very negative. And one of the real tragedies of the current election cycle, and one of the great tragedies, I think, of American politics right now is the fact that you've got these very, very senior Republicans who served in the Trump administration in senior position, interacted with Trump, more so, and have come out massively against Trump. And the Republican Party has chosen to completely ignore them. And it really is unprecedented. I can't think of another administration, Democrat or Republican, where senior officials within that administration, after they left, have come out and been so negative on the previous administration. Now, it's rare that somebody serves a term, loses, and then runs again. But still. Now, Kelly has, in the last few days, I guess, done a series of interviews with the New York Times about Trump. And it's pretty harsh what he has to say. Pretty harsh. So, for example, New York Times asked Kelly whether he thinks Trump is a fascist. And Kelly looks at the definition of fascism. This is from a dictionary. It's not my definition of fascism, for a dictionary. And he says, I'm quoting Kelly, well, look at the definition of fascism. It's a far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy, he says. He continues, so certainly in my experience, those are the kind of things that he thinks would work better in terms of running America. So Kelly is saying Trump would like to run a fascist regime. He can't, for a variety of reasons, have to do with our rule of law in our country and our institutions, separation of powers and things like that. But that's what he'd like to do. He added, certainly the former president is in the far-right area. He's certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure. Now think about that. We're talking about Kelly and Bolton and Mathis and McMaster, all basically characterizing Donald Trump the same way. Somebody who admires dictators and who would like to have their kind of power in America. And yet, this has all been ignored. People close to him, people who served under him, people in national security positions. Now everybody says, oh, these are rhinos, they're not real Republicans, these are Democrats, they love Biden, da-da-da-da. Why did Trump ever appoint them? Now, you can't have it both ways. You can say, look, Trump is really bad at selecting people. And in this case, he selected really, really bad people. And they turned out to be really, really, really bad. A lot of people, because Trump had a lot of turnover. And these are bad people. So, but Trump's a bad judge of character. Okay, you could argue that. But they don't, right? They love Trump, and Trump knows all, particularly. He's the best decider in terms of character. Or you could say, these people are, so they're either bad, and Trump made a mistake in hiring them, or they're incredible, and Trump is bad. I mean, there's no... And the reality is that, for example, John Bolton, I remember with John Bolton, I saw John Bolton. I was being interviewed by a Wall Street Journal thing, and he was there in the studio, and we talked. And this is before he was nominated, before he was approached by Trump. And it was like, I like John Bolton. John Bolton's tough. He's serious. He's a foreign policy expert, and he had the right approach. And at the time, when I was talking to John Bolton, he was like considered, the superstar within the Republican Party. He was like the guy. He was like, MAGA loved John Bolton. And then 2 years later, John Bolton's the devil. He's the worst. He's awful. And the same with Kelly. The same with McMaster. The same with Mathis. I remember when Mathis was selected as going to be the defense secretary, and the Republicans and MAGA were like, whoa, look at the quality of the people Trump is bringing on board. The best people. Mathis is like a genius. He's one of the great American generals. I was like, wait a minute, Mathis not that great. I was critical of Mathis, right? And then as soon as they turned against Trump, oh no, they're awful. They're terrible. Don't listen to one word that they say. And the amazing thing is, nobody listens to them. And as a consequence, the Republican Party has chosen Trump again, in spite of the fact that these senior people, these people with real experience, these incredibly knowledgeable people, and people who know Trump as president better than anybody else. Kelly continues to say, he says about Trump, quote, he certainly prefers the dictator approach to government. He said that Mr. Trump never accepted the fact that he wasn't the most powerful man in the world. And by power, I mean an ability to do anything he wanted, anytime he wanted, with no constraints. Again, to quote Kelly, I think he'd love to be just like he was in business. He could tell people to do things and they would do it, and not really bother too much with whether the legalities were there or not. Right? Kelly's reason Kelly decided to do this interview with the New York Times is he's particularly upset about Trump's comments recently about using the military against domestic opponents, about the enemy within, and which Kelly found incredibly dangerous. Again, quote, and I think the issue of using the military to go after American citizens is one of those things I think is very, very, very bad thing. Even to say it for political purposes to get elected, I think is a very, very bad thing, let alone actually doing it. Kelly also says that he told Trump, you can't do this, you can't use the army, the military for domestic issues. And he told over and over and over again, he had explained this to Trump. And, again, to quote Kelly, quote, originally conversations would be, Mr. President, that's outside your authority. Or, that's a routine use. You really don't want to do that inside the United States. But now that he's talking about it as I'm going to do it, it's the serving. Again, that was all Kelly. Kelly said Trump had a complete lack of fundamental understanding, and this I've said over and over and over again for 8 years now, a complete lack of understanding of the basic American values and what being president is about. Again, quoting Kelly, he's certainly the only president that has all but rejected God. I mean, again, I've been saying this for 8 years. Nobody believes me. He's certainly the only president that has all but rejected what America is all about and what makes America America in terms of our Constitution, in terms of our values, the way we look at everything, to include family and government. He's certainly the only president I know of, certainly in my lifetime, that was like that, rejecting the essence of America. He just doesn't get the values, Kelly says. He pretends. He talks. He knows more about America than anybody, but he doesn't. He says from the beginning, when he started working for Trump as his chief of staff, he had to explain to the president that he, like other top government officials, swore an oath to the Constitution, and that was more important than their loyalty to the president. That is, their loyalty ultimately was not to the president, but to the Constitution. And Trump could not get it. Could not get it. And Trump basically told him that, this is Kelly. He and I talked about it. And it was a new concept for him, this idea of a loyalty to the Constitution, I guess is the best way to put it. And I don't think it's one he ever totally accepted. Kelly said that personal loyalty is virtually everything to him. That's dictatorial. That's how dictators behave. There's no constitution. There's no principles. It's all about the leader and loyalty to that leader. It's pretty scary. Because this is the thing about a Trump second term. Kelly won't be there. Mathis, as much as I was critical of him, is at least is an American. Won't be there. He had, as chief economic advisor, he had Cohen, who then resigned after Charlottesville. He had, a Treasury Secretary I didn't like, but is at least a, reasonable understanding of economics, and try to do what he could to rein in Trump's advocacy of tariffs and other things. He had McMaster, he had Bolton, he even had, I have to say, his son-in-law. He had what I would consider semi-decent people around him, adults in the room, who reined him in. This time he's had years to prepare. He's built a cadre of Trump loyalists with personal loyalty to him, not the country, not the Constitution, but to him. And those are the people that are going to stand around him. They're going to be yes men who support his crazy ideas. And, whereas he expected the generals to be loyal to him last time, this time he won't appoint them unless he knows they are loyal to him. Kelly says about the generals around him, he says, quote, "Certainly a big surprise for him again was, if you remember at the beginning of the administration, he would talk about his generals. I don't know why he thought that, but then a very big surprise for him was that they were, those of us who were former generals and certainly people still on active duty, that the commitment, the loyalty was to the Constitution without question, without second thought. That was a big surprise to him, that the generals were not loyal to the boss, in this case him." Trump has already said he would replace everybody at the Pentagon. He changed the generals. He'd find generals loyal to him. Now that is scary. That is very, very scary. Now, we've heard a lot of stuff about Trump and Hitler, and there's a story in Atlantic today, I think, about comments Trump has made about Hitler. And Kelly talks about this. He says that Trump spoke positively of Hitler. He would say, quote, he commented more than once that, Hitler did some good things too. Kelly said he doesn't think Trump knows anything about history, that he's completely ignorant of history. And then Kelly would say, in response to Trump, he would say, first of all, you should never say that to Trump. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, the philosophy, so that nothing he did you could argue was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason. But Kelly says, yeah, the conversation would usually end when he said that, and then a few months later, Trump would come back to it. Obviously, Trump likes strong dictators. Hitler was one of those. And then finally, Kelly talked about, and has talked about in the past and talked about again, Trump's deep disdain for soldiers who have died, taken prisoners of war, or been injured in the battlefield. Again, to quote Kelly, certainly his not wanting to be seen with amputees that lost their limb in defense of this country, fighting for every American, him included, to protect them, but didn't want to be seen with them. That's an interesting perspective from the commander-in-chief to have. Kelly again would say, he would just say, look, it just doesn't look good for me. It's not a good look to be filmed next to an amputee. Kelly also confirmed that he considered service members who were injured or killed losers and suckers. And Kelly goes on, the time in Paris was not the only time that he said it. He said it on several occasions. Whenever John McCain's name came up, he'd go through this rant about him being a loser and all those people are suckers. And why do you people think that people getting killed are heroes? And he'd go through this rant. To me, I could never understand why he was that way. He may be the only American citizen that feels that way about those who gave their lives or served their country. I mean, if half of what Kelly's saying is true, and I believe that 100% of it is true, you can't, I mean, I don't know how you can vote for Trump. I'm not going to say you can't, because I know some of you will. I just don't know how you can vote for this monster. He is a little monster. Now, he might be good on this issue or that issue, but he is about as horrific as a human being as can be. Anyway, so that was published. The transcripts of the interviews, the 3 interviews he did with the New York Times. There's also the story in Atlantic about a variety of different comments that Trump has made with references to the Nazis and his kind of, I mean, stupid, ignorant attempts to be sympathetic to the Nazis in some bizarre kind of way. You can find that in the Atlantic. All right. I don't know. I mean, what do you say after that? What do you say after that? I mean, no, there's no principle. He's just a horrible, horrible human being. A despicable human being. Trump is. And again, I get why somebody would vote for him on any particular issue. But at the same time, I couldn't stomach it. Could not stomach it. Could not stomach it. All right, let's see. Puberty blockers. So, as we know, as you know, there's been a lot of discussion about trans over the last few years, about the whole phenomena, and of course, part of the whole transitioning that trans do is part of the issue is that a lot of kids who think like they belong to a different sex, in order to transition them in some way, although you can't really transition yourself, but if it's only of course a partial imitation of a transition, but it never can be complete. Just biologically, it can never be complete. But part of that transition, to try to make it as complete as possible, is to prevent boys from being boys and girls from being girls during puberty. To block the hormones, to block the development of a girl's, breasts and female hormones and ovulation and to block those with puberty blockers. And this has become common practice, and it's been done on thousands of children in the United States and in England and in Europe. And part of the excuse given for this, or part of the reason given for this, is that that these children are so depressed because they're in the wrong body, kind of thing, that if you don't treat them when they're children, they will be super depressed, and ultimately they'll commit suicide, or they'll live horrible, miserable lives as teenagers. Didn't we all? And then by the time they want to transition, when they're 18, the transition is not as smooth because they now have all the hormones and they now have all the biological issues, right? So and then there was a study out of the Netherlands, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. A small sample, but a study, where they found evidence that a group of young people who took the puberty blockers, who are super depressed beforehand, after the puberty blockers, they were super happy and undepressed and everything was cool. Now, a lot of questions have been raised about that study. And I talked about this when I talked about the CAS study. So in England, because of just a phenomena of the dramatic increase in the number of children transitioning and the number of children being treated with puberty blockers, about a couple of years ago, and all the issues relating to that. A few years ago, a pediatric specialist by the name of Cass, she was appointed to investigate and come up with a report specifying how this was all going. And I talked about this on a previous show. The Cass report is out. The Cass report basically says that there's no real science behind puberty blockers, that they shouldn't be given. She strongly recommends against giving them, except in very, very, very rare cases. And she generally comes out against treating very young people with medical treatments, surgery, and puberty blockers until they're 18 and they can make their own decisions. Again, with some exceptions in rare situations. And this report has caused the British government, because everything in medicine goes through the British government in England, to basically rein in this industry. Although the Labour Party now wants to reverse that, but to rein in this phenomenon, to stop British hospitals, NHS hospitals, from engaging in treating children with puberty blockers and surgery, and gender transitioning surgery. But the Cass report has not been received well in the United States, and there have been a number of people writing against it. Now, there was, it turns out, a study done, a government-funded study, to figure out, well, what is the mental health impact of puberty blockers, of giving puberty blockers. And this was done a few years ago. The study was funded by the government, and they took I think it was 70 or something, some certain number of young people, and who were gender distressed, they called them, and who had had issues, and they gave them puberty blockers, and then they later analyzed, years later, they analyzed how they're doing from a mental perspective. And the results, the study's been done, the results have been analyzed, but not published. So, the report, the study has never made it into publication. And in a story in the New York Times, again, the New York Times, and the New York Times kind of going kind of anti-woke, kind of interesting developments. In a story in the New York Times today, yeah, it's today, they asked the question to the doctor, why are the results never being published? And basically the response is this. The results of the study are that adding puberty blockers did not have any material effect on the mental health of the recipients. It did not improve their mental health. Okay, well, but that's important, right? It's kind of consistent with the Cass report and contradicts the report, the study in Netherlands, and it would be good for doctors and everybody and parents and everybody else to know. But the doctor who is one of the country's most vocal advocates of gender treatment and of puberty blockers, said that she didn't want to publish the study because she was concerned that it would be used in court and by the opponents of gender treatment to block the use of, hormone blockers, puberty blockers. So, let's see if we can get this straight, right? She's worried that if the truth got out, the truth would be used to stop providing an ineffectual treatment to kids. A treatment that is not necessarily reversible, and it has lasting and permanent damage on these kids. And she says this to the New York Times. New York Times publishes it too, which is, again, surprising because the New York Times, for some reason lately, just the last few days, has had a series of these kind of, call them anti-woke stories. It's interesting. Of course, other researchers are outraged by this. You're delaying the results that have real impact on decisions families are making right now, all over the world, and could have profound, lifelong consequences to the health of their children. And you're delaying it because the results didn't come out the way you wanted them to come out? Because the results didn't confirm your particular biases? It truly is astounding and shocking and upsetting and everything else. It's, I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of the state of the world. Facts ignored, evidence is ignored, reality is ignored. We just go with our wishes, our feelings, what we'd like, what we feel like, what is satisfying. To hell with reality, to hell with facts, to hell with science, to hell with medicine, and to hell with the health of our kids. We don't care about that. That's uninteresting. Let me just remind you, I've got a few more stories we're going to cover. Let me just remind you that that the show is funded from contributions from listeners like you. Can't have the show without your support. So please consider supporting the show. Particularly if you're watching live right now, a great way to support the show is by asking questions, because the asking questions, it lets you shape the issues that I cover. It gets you to ask me questions or to make comments or to challenge my beliefs, my ideas. So please do so. Use the super chat. If you don't want to ask a question, but you'd still like to support the show, please consider using a sticker to express that support, value for value, and you could do that live on YouTube right now. There are a lot of people watching right now, and just a little bit of support from those people would get us to the goal. We're way behind, more so than usual, behind our first hour goal. So, and it's rare that we don't make our goals for the show. Let's not make today an exception. Let's not make today an exception. All right, a few more stories. Let's start with my favorite senator. Not your average algorithm says, this is in the super chat, he says, Yaron, it seems you have more respect for the left than the right. All right, here's how much respect I have for Elizabeth Warren. From the left, Senator of Massachusetts, maybe the most evil woman in Washington, D.C., and we're talking about a den of evil women and men, Washington, D.C. is. So it's quite something. Elizabeth Warren came out today with a statement about McDonald's. Fast food, McDonald's, where you get hamburgers. I guess Donald Trump was working for McDonald's for like 15 minutes or something. He was over there. And her post is that McDonald's is raising prices. She writes, McDonald's is squeezing customers to make massive profits, paying out billions to their shareholders, and then blaming inflation for high costs. Fast food should be about making it life easier for Americans, not a fast payout for McDonald's executives and Wall Street shareholders. I mean, oh my God. This woman, I mean, if Donald Trump has an understanding of a 5-year-old's understanding of economics, I mean, I guess Elizabeth Warren matches him. I'm not going to say a 4-year-old because I don't think a 4-year-old has any understanding. But like Elizabeth Warren, who is much smarter than Donald Trump, and yet so dumb. And this is why I think she's evil, because she's too smart to not know the nonsense and the horror she is spewing. I mean, we all know the monopoly position McDonald's has. I mean, it dominates fast food. I mean, have you seen any other fast food chains out there other than McDonald's? Huh. I mean, that's why they can raise their prices with no limit, because there's just no competition. Nobody competes with McDonald's, right? They just love, like, don't they have like 95% of the fast food market share? I mean, it's just bizarre. You'd think there was no such thing as Burger King or Taco Bell or, I don't know, I don't do fast food, but there was a million fast food places, Wendy's and In-N-Out Burger in California and a million others. If McDonald's really was squeezing its customers, raising prices, what would happen? It would lose market share. People would go buy hamburgers somewhere else. I mean, McDonald's product is not that good. People are not buying it at no matter what price. There is competition. And of course, this is completely reversing cause and effect. McDonald's raising its prices causes inflation. I mean, that's bizarre. I mean, let's say McDonald's did raise its prices. It was the only one. And it made gazillions of dollars. And let's say we as consumers were such suckers, so stupid, so ignorant, that we all went and bought a McDonald's anyway, even though they were significantly more expensive than any other hamburger chain and any other fast food chain. It still wouldn't be inflation. We would buy more McDonald's. We'd pay more for McDonald's. We'd have less money in our pockets. And therefore, we'd be willing to pay less for other goods. And overall, inflation wouldn't change. I mean, what is inflation? Inflation is when prices overall rise, or better put, when the value of your currency decreases, when its purchasing power disappears. Not just for hamburgers, for all goods. At most, McDonald's prices going up is a relative price movement. But if you're seeing McDonald's prices going up and Burger King prices going up and every other food chain raising their prices and wages going up and prices going up at Walmart and CVS and Walgreens and Costco and everybody else, that's inflation. And that's not caused by any one company, and it's not caused by anybody's greed. That's caused by the fact that there's suddenly more money circulating in the economy, chasing after the same number of goods. And when there's more money chasing after the same number of goods, prices get bid up, and prices go up. And by the way, all the input prices for McDonald's, and I know Elizabeth Warren knows this because she was complaining about beef prices going up. Well, meat price go up for McDonald's. I'm sure bread prices went up for them. I'm sure potato prices went up for them. And I know that wages prices went up for them, and partially $15 minimum wages all over the country raised wages. So, of course, the hamburger price ultimately went up because of inflation, which means because of Massive increase in the monetary system. Massive increases in the amount of money generated by government. Government. But Democrats can't see that. They have no clue. And, I mean, if I was Elizabeth Warren, I wouldn't complain about it. What I would do is I'd start a competitor to McDonald's, and I would still make gazillions of dollars, but I would undermine them by selling my hamburgers for less money. And I would take advantage of McDonald's greed to undermine them and compete against them and beat them at their own game. And then, when I achieved a monopoly, I would raise my money. Well, I wouldn't, because I would be Elizabeth Warren and I would care about social justice. I would keep my prices low forever because I would not be trying to maximize profits. Not just Elizabeth Warren, but 3 Democratic senators are asking McDonald's about its menu price hikes in recent years, arguing that the increases are higher than they should be. I know, because these 3 Democratic senators are all experts, I'm told, on fast food businesses, on running a fast food business, on the price structure of fast food businesses, on the competitive nature of, even with inflation and rising operating costs. Now, here's the question I have for you. Where in our Constitution, where in the Declaration of Independence, where in the Federalist Papers did the founders of this country envision that the U.S. government would get engaged in telling businesses what they could and couldn't charge their customers? Let's say the 3 Democratic senators are absolutely correct, and these fast food and McDonald's has found a way to bilk their customers. That is, to charge them much higher prices than inflation and rising operating costs would justify. Why is that the business of our government? It's not. It's not. This is why, unless we completely separate government from economics, they'll keep doing this kind of crap. They'll keep doing this kind of crap. And the pretentiousness, the arrogance, and they do this to pharmaceuticals, and they do this to tech, and they do this to Facebook, and they do this to businesses. The philosopher kings, a bunch of idiots who've never employed anybody in their lives, sitting in Washington, D.C., ruling over us, telling us how much we should pay for a hamburger, telling businesses what they can and cannot do, how they can or cannot run their business. This is by me being, what did Not Your Average Algorithm say? Being respectful to the left. I'm very respectful to their complete and utter, really insanity when it comes to how they, I mean, not insanity, insanity is too nice of a word. I mean, really it is, they're little dictators, they're all. I mean, this is the problem. This is the problem when I talked about Trump and Kelly, what Kelly said about Trump, is they're all like this. Trump is particularly bad and could get away with it because his voters support him in doing it. But they're all little dictators. Some more capable, others less capable. Luckily, Elizabeth Warren will never be president. But she just wants to run your life. All right, let's see. What other ones are we going to do? We'll keep that one for maybe another time. Yeah, let's do this. This is a story from yesterday. The former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch. Do you remember Abercrombie and Fitch? I mean, there's still, if you go to fancy malls, they're still there, really slick stores. But about 10 years ago, they used to have these male models, usually shirtless, usually very good looking, standing in the front of their stores, kind of enticing you in. Very sexually explicit, very provocative, to say the least. Yeah, so I mean, that used to be the kind of the shtick, and I don't know who bought the clothes. I don't know why anybody would buy the clothes, but whatever. It was couched as, good-looking guys, maybe even good-looking gay guys. This is where you went where you went to get your clothes. This was a sexy place. This was their place. Anyway, yesterday, the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch and his partner, his partner in life, were arrested. And they've been charged with running a prostitution and international sex trafficking business. They claim that the former fashion executive, Mike Jeffries, and his partner, Matthew Smith, and the couple's alleged middleman, James Jacobson, basically used violence and exploitation to coerce sexual acts. They engage in fraud and force, and they're arrested. It's a big story because a lot of people, I guess, well-known people in that world, in the world of fashion, I guess part of this. The story is that they sexually exploited and abused men at events they hosted as part of Abercrombie and Fitch or in their New York residences and hotels around the world. That this has been going on for years, and now you've got a number of victims coming forward, and this indictment is moving forward. So, there's a clamping down on exploitation and human trafficking. And human trafficking really means coercion and force. All right, we'll do, I've got three stories, quick stories that we can do. This one is from Norway. Another example of how many times you have to run the same experiment over and over again to be convinced that this is how things work. Any economist would have explained to them that this is what would have happened, but they had to try it themselves to figure it out. Norway recently increased its wealth tax. This is a tax on your net worth. They thought by increasing the tax, they would raise an additional $146 million a year in tax revenue. Instead, what happened? Individuals with a combined worth of $54 billion left Norway. They emigrated out. And indeed, Revenue Norway raised $594 million less revenue than they expected. In other words, it was a complete and utter disaster. The amount of revenue they raised went down significantly. That's what happens, particularly in a small country like Norway, where you've got options. Norwegians can move to other countries, in Europe particularly. They can go to Monte Carlo if they're really rich and not pay taxes at all, pretty much. They can do a lot of things. They can move to the Caribbean. It's not like the U.S., where you can't move anywhere. The IRS will get you, right? They tax your worldwide income. A Norwegian can keep his Norwegian citizenship, but move his assets out of Norway and move his residence out of Norway and not have to pay the wealth tax. Now, anybody could have told them that this would happen. Sweden tried this in the 70s, and the same thing happened. People just moved their residencies. Famously, Yaron Brook left Sweden, the tennis player, and moved to Monte Carlo to avoid higher taxes. So there you go. Another example of the same thing we see over and over again. All right. So I just thought I'd fill you in because there's a period in which I covered this story quite extensively. But it turns out that whatever gravitational pull or whatever phenomena there is causing Russian oligarchs or wealthy Russians to fall out of windows has reasserted itself. It took a break for a while, maybe because so many people like me were pointing this out, and maybe people were getting a little teeny bit suspicious about what was going on. It's back again. 2 days ago, a Russian, or what was it, 4 days ago, a Russian oligarch, former vice president of the oil giant Yukos, Mikhail Rogachev, mysteriously, completely mysteriously, died. Well, he didn't mysteriously die. His death was not a mystery. What's a mystery is how come he fell out of a window from his own apartment that's on the 11th floor in a building in Moscow. I mean, it's not even like somebody stranger's apartment where maybe he took a wrong turn and stumbled off the balcony. It's his own apartment. 11th floor. He died. No reports about whether he committed suicide before he jumped, whether he was stabbed or he stabbed himself before he jumped. Not clear. But he did fall 11 stories to his death. Russians falling out of windows used to be a kind of one of the sub-themes of the Yaron Brook show. Maybe we can resurrect it. Maybe it's going to happen again. But Putin eliminating, or somebody in Russia eliminating people. I'm not sure why. Who knows why? All right, final story for all of you. Let's see if I can get the story because Chrome is okay. There he is. All right. So you know how sugar is not good for you, or at least large quantities of sugar, and certainly in sizable quantities, sugar is not good for you. Certainly the amounts of sugar and corn syrup and stuff like that in soft drinks, you probably shouldn't be drinking it. I'm not giving health advice. I don't know, but I don't eat sugar. I avoid sugar. I'll eat sugar in food, right? In fruits and, when it's natural, but I don't add sugar to anything. But part of the problem is I hate the sweeteners. I can't stand sweeteners. I can't stand all the different sweeteners. They all have an aftertaste. They all just taste off. I hate Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi or whatever it's called, whatever it is. It just is horrible. And now there have been studies, and again, hard to tell which studies are good and which studies are not, and how reliable they are, and so on. Now, look, it's not that I never eat sugar. Sometimes I eat sugar. It's not like a religion. If you have really, really, really good ice cream and it's not too sweet, because I've stopped eating sugar 20 years ago, my tolerance for sweet is much lower. So if there's a not very sweet ice cream, I'll eat it. But anyway, the sweeteners are bad, have aftertaste, and they're usually unhealthy too. And the other part of this is recently there's been a big push to eat more protein. Protein helps build muscle. You want muscle. Muscle is important, so eat more protein. Well, now an Israeli food tech company called Amai, which is based in the center of Israel, has developed a protein-based sweetener. It's a calorie-free, that sounds good, calorie-free protein sweetener called sweetener. It's now received multiple regulatory approvals. It's waiting for the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, to give it a final thumbs up. But we could see soon. Sweetener. Now, this is once they figure this out, it's easy to make. They can make it in large quantities. It's not expensive. But it's a major breakthrough. They've been working on this for many years. And it's supposed to be super healthy, super good for you, and a protein that will basically cause your receptors on your tongue, your taste receptors, to signal sweetness to the brain without calories, without health risks, and without sugar consumption. So I'm all for it. And if we can integrate it into mint chocolate chip ice cream, and not too much. I don't want too much sugar receptors, then I'm excited. I'm excited, and if we can get it so that it's doesn't have an aftertaste, you've sold me. So innovation keeps going, and the food industry, artificial foods is very big in Israel. There's a very big push in Israel for. And there are a number of companies, at least a couple of companies, one, I think, at the bleeding edge of the technology, of artificial meat, the lab-grown meat, which I think is super exciting. That's also happening in Israel, actually in my alma mater, at the Technion. So hopefully one of these days we'll get to taste lab-grown meat. I'm excited about that prospect. You could customize it for taste. You can customize it for protein versus saturated fat versus fat for flavor. And I think that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. All right. I think we'll call that the news for this October 23rd. Now, before we go to the Super Chat, we're going to go to the Super Chat. I want to catch up on the songs and stuff that I owe people. I owe a short story, a TV episode, 2 TV episodes, and songs. And what I thought today is we'd catch up on the painting that I owe. Stringer Bell actually just gave me $50 here, where he says, "Hello, Yaron. I saw your show yesterday and want to let you know that I'm not upset." I appreciate that. "I've been busy recently focusing on other pursuits. I am patiently waiting for the painting review. Thank you for all of your commentary and insight." Okay, it's here. The day has arrived, Stringer Bell. We're going to get the painting review right now, and I'm going to shift this because I said I could show the painting. So here is the painting. For those of you on video, can actually see the painting. And this is a painting by, why did that shrink? Why did it shrink there? Okay, let me get it away from there. We don't want it to shrink. Yeah, we want it full size for you guys. I wanted you to see this. So this is a painting called The Discourse. It's by Alma-Tadema. Alma-Tadema is a painter. Lawrence Alma-Tadema is a British painter from the 19th century, academically trained in the academy in London in painting. The academy that had many other very famous painters, very renowned school. If you want to see some of the paintings from this period of British art, which I think was brilliant, I mean, really great paintings, the Tate Britain Gallery. So there are 2 Tate museums in London. One is Tate Modern. Don't go to Tate Modern. Go to the Tate Britain Museum, and there you can see a bunch of these paintings, both pre-Raphaelites, who are not part of the academic tradition, but are very good nonetheless, and the academics, including a number of Alma-Tademas are in the gallery, but also a number of other phenomenal painters from this tradition. Alma-Tadema is particularly known for painting very serene, beautiful paintings, usually of women, in Greek or Roman clothes, set in a Roman kind of setting with columns and beautiful colors. He's a beautiful colorist, and just very, very serene and relaxed and beautiful. I think I have at least one Alma-Tadema hanging on one of the walls in my home. A poster, not an original. I wish it was an original. But you can find Alma-Tademas in a number of different museums around the world, but mainly in the UK. He was a British painter, after all. And really, 19th century British painting and sculpture, surprisingly, was very, very good. Very, very good. Some of the best anyway. And so I highly recommend Tate Britain. One of the sad things about Tate Britain is they don't value these paintings. They don't take them particularly seriously. So what happens is they put them in a room and they just stack them. And there's like dozens of them, and it's very hard to focus. Some of them are high up, and it's hard to really see them and fully appreciate them. You don't get the full aesthetic experience. They'll give a whole wall, they'll dedicate a whole wall to a painting with splashes of paint on it that means nothing. But these beautiful paintings, they basically treat, they basically, don't do them justice. Anyway, that's just some background on Alma-Tadema, a very, 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 very accomplished painter, and one of the best and one of the most interesting painters, I think, of the 19th century, which had a lot of good painters. Anyway, this is called The Discourse, and I haven't really read anything about it. I haven't found anything to read about it. So we're just going to analyze it. We're going to look at it. Just looking at it, just what can we get from the painting? So a few things you should note, and I think it's always important when looking at a painting to notice these things. The first thing you want to think of is, where's your eye going? Where's the painter drawing you to? And this is usually used by use of light. What is lit up? Because your eye is going to go to the light. It's not going to go to the dark. The more contrast there is, the more that is true. But here your eye is immediately drawn to the figure on the left. He's wearing white clothes. His eyes are kind of shining. He's got an intense look in his face. His skin, particularly his arm and his neck, are very white, which just draws your light. You might start at the marble at the bottom of his feet and go right up to his head. That's where you're going to look. That's where you're going to look. Right, you're going to get very quickly to the face of the man on the left. And what do you notice about that face? It is intent. It is focused. His mouth is open. He could very well be in the middle of speech, and the painting is called The Discourse, so he probably is in the middle of saying something. If your eye then goes down the arm and you see the finger pointed, he's using his hands to speak, to make a point. He's pointing. He's making a point. He's having a discourse. From his arm, you might go now to the second figure. And the second figure is not lit up. His face is a little bit. But I think what attracts one to the second figure is this, God, I'm bad with colors and I'm actually colorblind. So if the color that I mentioned is wrong, then that's okay. This brown, greenish brown kind of cloak that he's wearing, it's particularly given, we'll talk about the colors in this painting, it attracts you. It's like, it's a contrast. It's a sharp contrast to the white. It's not the darkest thing in the room, but it's dark. It's a sharp contrast to the white. And indeed, if you go up to the man's face, the man is not talking. He's very much listening. He's engaged. He has a sober look. He looks, to me at least from this angle, older. He's sitting up straight. I would say he's the more distinguished. He's the most scholarly. If I had to guess, you've got somebody young and excited, maybe a student, talking to somebody older who is maybe the authority here, and they're having a discourse. And the man on the left is passionately explaining something and passionately advocating for something. And the man on the right is listening and probably responding and generating this kind of passion from the man on the left. So very engaged. This is a very engaged, they're very engaged in between. They're sitting at a corner of this Greek-like table, I guess, counter. And their gaze is direct. They're looking at each other. And that is very much where your attention is drawn to. And, they really, from there, your eye will probably drift upwards towards, there's a kind of a relief sculpture right above the younger guy's head, a little dour expression, but serious. It's got the wreath of, I guess, victory, and they're expressing success and victory. This is you kind of look and you see on the right, you see a beautiful sculpture, a female nude on the right, and then above those two there's a painting, maybe of a woman dancing, a half-nude woman dancing. It's hard to tell exactly, but that's kind of what it looks like. Very dark. Your eye definitely is not going there. It's only after you are screening the painting, the painting as a whole, you see that. It serves, in a sense, as a contrast, the light coming out of the young man, or in which the young man is being drawn. So you've definitely got a scene here of opulence, of success. This is a rich place, a place of culture and education. You also notice between the two men, there is this container. And in the container, there are what look like, what do you call it? Maybe documents rolled up, books. In those days, that's how books were. These were manifestos rolled up. Maybe they're discussing one of those. Maybe they're studying together one of those. Or maybe there's a teacher and student, and the student is explaining one of the passages. And these scrolls, thank you, John. That's exactly the same. The scrolls in the middle there. You also, as an expression of the wealth involved here and the richness, at the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a fountain, a water fountain, water shooting out of this counter and going into this like tub and then flowing out of that. I mean, this is a wealthy aristocrat where there is a discussion, a debate, but probably more of a lesson going on here, a disputation around a scroll, around a particular book. So, you know, if you look at the features, you know, I think they're beautifully done. You get the different characters. Just from looking at the side and the back of the older character, you get a sense of seriousness and focus and seriousness. The younger person, the excitement, the exuberance, the passion are right there, and the movement. The clothes are all simple. Your eye is not going to focus on the clothes. The clothes are just there to show that they are, you know, I think particularly on the man on the right, wealthy, but there's no great detail. There's no spending, but it feels real. They're draped over them in a natural kind of way. It takes real skill to put clothes on a painted figure and make it look real, make it look like a reality. So, you know, it's beautifully painted. It's very well done. You know, really good technique. The artist has you focused on where he wants you to focus. Now, the colors here are basically, it's a very, how would you call it, monochrome painting. It's basically shades of brown, greenish brown, with the exception of the young figure, which is white, and what is that? A kind of I don't know, a grayish, a light gray. But everything else is kind of, so color-wise, I find the painting not that interesting. It's a little too monochrome for me. It's not a painting that I would be attracted to it. I find it interesting. It's enjoyable. It's not a painting I'd hang on my wall. Not because there's any problem with it. I just find the colors just a little, it's just a little boring, while the interaction is interesting and fascinating. It's just not stimulating visually enough for me. That's just my personal view. Note that the characters are much more in focus than the background. Background's a little out of focus, a little shady, not sharp, but the face is sharp, the arm is sharp, the finger's there. So again, that's all to bring out the figures into the front so that your emphasis is on them. And it really is, it's a painting that really, I think, brings forward the value of the discourse. the value of conversation, the value of engagement in not just any conversation. This is clearly intellectual conversation, and the scrolls bring that forward. So I think a beautiful painting, a painting I really enjoy and I like, but not one that I'm excited about putting up on my wall. Primarily, I think because of the colors. But that's just me. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you find it interesting. String a bell. I hope that is a satisfactory discussion of it. But really an enjoyable painting. And I have to say, before Stringer Bell introduced me to this painting, I was not familiar with it. So I don't know where it is. I don't know. I should see. Let's see if I put here, where is it? Where is it? I wonder if it'll tell me where it is. There's a wiki. Yeah, but the wiki doesn't really tell you anything. It says in this style of romanticism. I don't know. I mean, this is, yeah. I mean, there's a, yeah. I mean, that's a problem with applying romanticism to painting. We talked about this. Problematic. Not easy. It doesn't say where it is. If anybody knows where this painting is and what museum it is, that would be pretty amazing. That would be pretty cool. Because I don't know where it is. You can buy a poster of this painting online. Quite a lot of, you can get a copy of it, somebody copying it and oil painting, or you can get a poster of it. And there are a number of different sources for that. Maybe the best source for posters is, let me just see, what was it called? I can't remember the name of the company. Which offers you art. It's called the Art Renewal Center. If you check out the Art Renewal Center, they have, first of all, they have pictures of 335 artworks by Alma-Tadema. Just Alma-Tadema, 335 artworks. And you can pretty much buy a poster of any one of them. Of any one of them. So, yeah, let's see if I can do this. Oh, you can see it. I'm actually scrolling. You can see here the paintings by Alma-Tadema that the Art Renewal has, and you can see how much color his paintings often have. He loves blues, and there's just a lot of color, a lot of movement in a lot of his paintings, a lot of intricate scenes, flowers, beautiful women, usually beautiful women. And you can usually tell an Alma-Tadema by just looking at it. So I'm just scrolling down the Art Renewal website for you to see what they have. And they also tell you which museum it's from. So if we can see the discourse here, there's the discourse. Oh, so it's private. So the discourse is in the collection of Fred and Sherry Ross in the United States. But you can buy a poster of it from this source. Yeah, I mean, some of these are strikingly beautiful. I like my paintings to have very, in a sense, simple themes, but to be beautiful. I like my paintings to be beautiful. The ones on the wall that I put up on the wall, so that your eye goes to it, and it's just gorgeous. And Alma-Tadema fits that romantic, and beautiful women in beautiful poses is a lot of what he does. A few nudes, not a lot, but you can see almost all of them set in kind of Roman settings. Anyway, check it out. Artrenewal.org. Artrenewal.org. They have a bunch of interesting stuff. All right, oh yeah, I need to go here. Get rid of that. There we are. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Stringer Bell, for paying me to do that. That was fun. Even for no pay, that was fun. All right. John has just stepped in with like $400 and a bunch of more stuff for me to review. So just as I'm catching up, oh, this is great. So I'm copy pasting it into my list of stuff to, I still owe John a review of Disney songs. That should happen tomorrow because I've already listened to songs, written up some notes. So I'm hoping to get John to get your Disney songs on, not the Lion King and those. I'm not sure what happened to that, but for Mona and Moana, and from the other Disney songs. So I will do that tomorrow. We'll cover that tomorrow. All right. Let's go to, let me just close this window. Let's go to the Super Chat. Let me just read what John has written so that I have a sense of what it is. Again, $400. Thank you, John. John says, please review the song Shake It Off and The Man by Taylor Swift. Oh, God. He's got me reviewing Taylor Swift songs. These songs are upbeat and very fun, and the message of both these songs are in the same vein. I highly recommend watching the official music video while you listen as well. They're both so funny, in my opinion. And then he goes on, please review the song I Miss You by Incubus. Not very many lyrics to this one. The lead singer, Brandon Boyd, wrote this for his then girlfriend who lived, I think, in England. It's about the struggle that comes from being apart from the one you love. And then finally, please review the song Warning by Incubus. I think it's about the dangers of abandoning one's independence. I think they're kind of unknowingly tapping into Rand's idea of second-handedness. I love to know what you think. Okay, thanks, John. I will review all of those. I don't know Incubus, so you expose me to a new band. So that'll be fun. All right. So let us get to the Super Chat questions and cover those and keep the show moving forward. And yeah, I mean, John just helped us basically get through into the third hour. So really, really appreciate that. John, I was starting to worry there, and we made it. Mary Aline, $50. Thank you, Mary Aline. I went to grade school in the 60s and often wanted to be a boy. Boys were cooler than girls then. I was very mixed up and could probably have been convinced to transition, which would have been a disaster for me. Kids aren't able to make these decisions. I basically agree with you. I think it's a very, very extraordinary, rare occasion, which usually has some biological impetus for there to be a real issue of identity. I mean, my wife has a similar story about she was a tomboy. She wanted to be a boy. I think she told her mother, put me back in the womb and so I can come out a boy next time or something like that. And I think a lot of girls who are tomboys are like that. And there's a sense, particularly in the 60s, it was more fun to be a boy. Boys were allowed to do more stuff. They were left alone more. They were more independent. And I think a lot of girls want that. As my wife says, puberty hits and she discovered all the unbelievable benefits of being a girl and she never looked back. And I think that's right. And to deny a child the opportunity to experience puberty, to experience what it is to become a man or woman from a boy or girl, to experience that transition, it's just, I think it's horrific. It's completely and utterly horrific. And again, with the exception of certain extreme cases, I think it's really evil to deny them that. And then if at 18 you decide something's wrong and you want to do whatever, I mean, then you're 18. You make the decision. But that's after you get to experience what it is. Because you're a child before that. Before 12, you're a child. And then 12 to 16 or 18, you're confused. We're all confused. That's something puberty does. So you have to become the thing that puberty is turning you into, a girl into a woman, a boy into a man, before you can make up your mind whether this is who you are or not, whether you want to do something irreversible to change yourself or not. So, yeah. I think, Marilyn, that is it's very common among tomboys, and a lot of girls who are tomboys. And I think if the culture was a little different, particularly back then, there'd be a lot more tomboys. Thank you, Mary Elaine. Michael, suppose we could breed or clone humans, and while they were still in the womb, we removed their brains and replaced them with robot brains and made them our slaves, servants. Would that be a rights violation? God. In the womb. I mean, why would we even have wombs at that point? I mean, it's definitely probably not a thing that you do in the womb. It would probably be a completely artificial being. You know, first of all, it wouldn't be a slave if it was not human. Only humans can be slaves. But if you created, in a sense, biological robots to be your servant, to work for you, I don't see how that is a rights violation. I don't know whose rights are you violating exactly. I don't understand this particular process you would go through. It just seems unrealistic. I don't particularly like hypotheticals that are just so unrealistic. You would probably just create a body, build a biological body with a computer as a brain. What would be a rights violation is to instill into a human brain a chip, even if it was done, I think, in the womb, a chip, let's say, that made that brain not have free will and made it a slave. That, I think, would be immoral, would be completely immoral, because then you're still having the child, and they still have the brain, but you're, in a sense, what do you call it, disengaging it, making it not function qua human. That, I think, would be wrong. I mean, there's probably something wrong with replacing their brain with the robot. It's certainly wrong. Whether it's a rights violation, probably not. And I don't think it would ever happen, right? Because it's not a person yet. I agree it's not a person yet. But it's just wrong to... I actually think that robots will not be human-like. Like our slaves, not slaves, the workers we have who are robots will not be human-like, because it's going to be very important for us to be able to differentiate. We'll want to give them a marker. And why make them like humans? I think it will make us very uncomfortable. And I would be uncomfortable ordering a human-like robot around as if they were a human being. So, yeah, I don't think you would want to create robots that look identical to human beings. I guess Chandler says, because sex, that's why. I assume he's talking about this question. Yeah, I can see that. So you would definitely have sex robots. You would definitely have robots that were there just to have sex with. That would be a thing. And there would be a clientele who would want them to be as human-like as possible. That would be a thing. I believe that. But that would be their function, I think. I don't think for healthy human beings, A, they would want to have sex with sex robots, and two, that healthier human beings would want to order around a robot that looked exactly like them. I think they'd want a differentiation. Yeah, Chandler's Chandler assures us that the sex robot is not for him, it's for a friend of his. Michael asks, will there eventually be one universal language? 300 years from now, everyone will speak English. I think it's quite possible. I think they might develop a different language on Mars, or a dialect of English on Mars. What happens when you take a civilization and you isolate a portion of it, language develops differently in the two places that are isolated from one another. Mars is pretty isolated. It's going to take a while to get there. Communications is going to be difficult, even at the speed of light, certainly at the speed of sound. So there's reason to believe they developed their own dialect, which could turn into a language. But on Earth, over time, I think you'd gravitate to a single language. Yes. Michael, good things come to those that hold on tight to what is true. Yeah, I think that's right. Truth is the key. Truth is the key to values. Truth is the key to success, the happiness. Michael says, can you do a reaction video to Patrick Ben-David's ridiculous Israel comments? I'll look for them. I was going to do a reaction video to Patrick Ben-David's ridiculous tariff comments, but I can do one on Israel as well. I'll look for that. Ian, Pence, Kelly, Bolton, Mathis, all not voting for Trump. It is insane that 47% of people are willing to vote for this loser. You know, Ian, you might, yeah, I think it's going to be more than 47%. I think he might win. I think he might win. I think he might win solidly. We'll see. Gail, we must judge Trump on his actions. I completely agree. Trump is so desperate to have his servants bow down to him. No wonder he is drawn to dictators. Yeah. People who say, yes, sir. What can I do for you, sir? Yes, I'll jump. I'll do whatever you say. The hell with the Constitution. Supikaski, there is a growing normalization of misogyny on the right. Yes. This very much concerns me. We seem to be moving towards a cruel and violent society. Yes, I think that's true on the right and the left, right? Both of them are moving towards cruelty and violence in different forms towards different people, but same thing. And yes, I think the phenomena of misogyny, the phenomena of just viewing masculinity as necessitating putting women down, as necessitating ridiculing women, as necessitating feeling superior to women, as necessitating exploiting women, as necessitating sex for sex sake with as many women as possible and treating them like a commodity. Yeah, I mean, that is, and again, I forget the guy's name in Romania who represents this attitude. It's despicable, it's horrible, and it's very, very worrying, and I worry about it too. The whole phenomenon of a manosphere, while I think there's a slight, tiny little element of truth that's there, that they're rebelling against, Andrew Tate, yes. Andrew Tate is the bad guy. Is just a horrific, irrational, reactionary phenomena that is very bad for culture and civilization, and for the relationship between men and women. Very bad. So I agree with you, Supi Kask. Enric, acquaintance on Facebook posted she's upset at a person at bakery who had a large order and only tipped 10%. She argued servers depend on tips. Your take? I don't know. This is at a bakery? So, I don't know. Your tip should depend on the extent to which you are being served. If somebody's behind the counter and just providing you with that minimal service as people go through, then I think the tip is different than if somebody is waiting on you and running to the kitchen and back and forth and da-da-da-da-da. I don't know what the right level of tipping is. I don't know how you figure that out. In the United States, 20% has become the acceptable amount at a restaurant. It used to be 15. In Europe, it's 10. But yes, I think because it's 20 in the United States, waiters generally get less salary because they're expected to make some of their money off of the tips, which is fine. And if that's the way, if that's the arrangement, I'm happy to tip 20% if the service is good. And once in a while, if it's a favorite server and if they've done a phenomenal job, and after a few visits to the restaurant, I might tip even more, just to show my appreciation. I don't get upset at people who tip less. You know, it depends on what, you know, but it is kind of, it has become kind of built into the system. I wish it wasn't, because, you know, you always struggle. Okay, well, how much should I tip the taxi driver? And how much should I tip the guy who takes the bags up to my room? And the concierge, if I ask him to book me a restaurant, do I need to tip him now? And concierge is supposed to tip him $20 or something, I don't know. And you leave a tip at the hotel room for the maid. And then it goes on and on and on. And I don't particularly like it. But so I prefer Europe, where you don't tip generally. You don't tip taxis. And you tip waiters maybe 10%. And in some places, no. And if you don't tip, they don't get upset. But in America, it's built into the way people are compensated. Now, in a bakery or in a counter service, I don't tip 20% at Starbucks. I drop $1 or something. Now, maybe that turns out to be 20% because I'm not ordering a lot. But I think 10% at a bakery, where you're just collecting stuff, is reasonable. I mean, if that's what you're asking. All right, this is last question. So if you wanted to ask a question, do it now or forever. No, I mean, until tomorrow, you won't be able to ask any questions. We'll be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Don't forget. All right. Mary Elaine says, protein-based and calorie-free, protein has calories. I don't know. I'm just reading from the article. It says it's calorie-free and it's protein-based. So I don't know what the basis of that is, but I assume they know what they're talking about. But maybe they don't. It's quite possible. All right, a few things I want to remind you of. I will be in Nashville in 2 weeks. Yes, in exactly 2 weeks, the day after the elections. I'll be doing two things in Nashville. I'm going to give a talk at the Federalist Society at Vanderbilt University in Nashville. And I'm going to give a talk at the Bastiat Society in the evening. The talk in the Bastiat Society in the evening is open to the public. So if you live in the Nashville area, you can come. So please consider that. It'll be a lot of fun. Both talks about basically the evils of democracy, of unlimited majority democracy. So that is a week. Is it a week from today? No, 2 weeks from today. Sorry, 2 weeks from today. In November, right? November 6th, the day after the election. And you can find information about that on yaronbrookshow.com, which if you go to right now, because I think we just launched my new website. So I'm curious what you think of the new website. I think it just launched while the show was going on today. Yeah, there it is. There's the new show. There's the new website. The video didn't come up. I'm not sure what the video is coming up slowly. It's coming up slowly. But there it is. There's Yaron Brook. Add your heading text here. That's wrong. All right, so it still needs cleaning up. I don't know why add your heading text here is appearing there. I'll have to talk to them about that. This section, click to check out. Yaron's Amazon. That doesn't look right, I don't think. Maybe it does. I don't know. And then upcoming events. There's upcoming events. And we've got my interview with Gene Maroney on Monday. Don't forget, Monday, 7 p.m. Gene Maroney. We're going to be talking about motivation by love. Motivation by love. Is there a better topic on the planet? Probably not. So don't forget, that's on Monday, 7 p.m. Then, that's October 28th. Then on November 6th, The Evils of Unlimited Democracy. That's going to be a student-only event at Vanderbilt University. Then in the evening from 6 to 8 p.m. In Nashville. Doesn't say where in Nashville, but there's a link there. Yeah, there's an RSVP link. You can link and that'll give you the address and everything. And that is called Democracy, the Rule of the Mob. Then the following day, on November 7th, in Denver, I am doing a discussion with Dr. Tom Cranwitter and Michael Williams, both good friends. Michael is an objectivist. Tom is not, but Tom is a super interesting scholar of the Constitution, of the American founding, and we agree on a lot of stuff. And that'll be at the Cherry Creek Marina in Denver, in Greenwood Village. It's Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Now, if you want to come live, there's a cost. It's like $75, but it's worth it. It'll be a lot. It'll be fun. It'll be live. You'll be right there, and we'll hang out. Please come. So you have to go register now. If you want to do the live stream, it'll be live streamed. So please, that you can do from anywhere. Anywhere. You can also sign up for the live stream. Live stream, I think, is $15, and you can sign up for that. I don't see the link for the live stream on my website. I'll have them add that. I'll have them add the link to the website for that. I'm not going to announce the rest of my November until I've got it finalized, but I'll still be in Denver on November 8th, and then I might be in South America starting the following week, but I'll let you know. And then you'll also find, for those of you in Europe, you'll find my European schedule on my website. So events in Porto, Portugal, Lisbon, Portugal, Düsseldorf, Germany, and on and on. Hey, Lucinda, maybe you can come to Düsseldorf and we can meet. I'll also be in Berlin, Germany, so and in Cambridge, and in Gouda, Netherlands, and in Oslo, and then Brisbane, and Sydney. So all the events are now listed on the website. And you can find everything. You can find the details. We add the links when we have available. By the way, this January will be my 10th anniversary as a podcaster. That's pretty cool. All right, so those are the live events. Nashville, Denver, please sign up for them. Please sign up for the live streaming. They're trying to pay for the live stream. They've got a cameraman, 3 cameras, the equipment, everything. Please sign up for the live stream. It's going to be a fun event. We're talking about the election, post-election, future of America, stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of fun. A Bastiat one is $20, it says. Yeah. All right. So please do it. All right, let's see. If you want to support the show and you're not here to Super Chat, then please consider becoming a monthly supporter. Patreon is, I think, the preferred method. It's the easiest one. It's easier for you to manage. It's easier for me to manage. You still use, PayPal. Don't switch if you're on PayPal. It's fine. But for new people, Patreon is probably the best way to go. If for some reason you object to using PayPal, for some reason you don't want to use Patreon or PayPal, I'm still on Subscribestar. There's always a way to support me financially if you want to. Please do so. Yeah, that's it for now. All right, Ian says, hope you're recovering well. I'll know more tomorrow because I've got my first doctor's appointment after the surgery. Hopefully he'll tell me what he actually did. I explain the surgery to me and then check me out, see how I'm doing relative to that. Pain is not really a problem. Discomfort is a problem, primarily at night. I think yesterday was the best sleep I've had so far. So it is improving. And I do get a sense that I'm not allowed to use my arm, not allowed to move it, but I do accidentally. My range of movement is improving, definitely improving. So that is definitely good. And tomorrow is also my first physical therapy, where he is going to move my arm to places where it might not want to go. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Neo asks, was Che Guevara evil? What's your take on him? Many people like him. Che Guevara was unequivocally, without a doubt, evil with a big capital E. He was a murderer. He advocated for an ideology of murder. But he literally was a guy who took a gun, put it to the head, to people's heads, and pulled the trigger. He is a bad, bad, bad human being who, again, advocated an ideology that was murderous. And you say, well, he didn't think so. No, he knew so because he did some of the murdering. And he participated in the murders. And people who adore Che Guevara are either sick or unbelievably ignorant or evil themselves. But you got to do the research. And the research is unequivocal. This guy is a communist. Communism's an evil ideology. And he practiced it. He went out and shot people and fought for this evil cause, fought for monstrous ideology. And he was smart. So he knew that it was monstrous. And he lived it, its monstrosity. All right. That might make a good 1-minute video. Thank you guys. Really, really appreciate it. Particularly, John. That was incredible. Thank you for the $400. And Mary Aline, who came in with 50, and Stringer Bell, who came with 50. So thank you guys. That really helped. Thanks to everybody else. All the super chatters, $2, $1, $100, all good. I will see you all tomorrow. Remember, 7 p.m. So evening, we will talk. I think we're going to do Patrick Ben David. And maybe by then Israel will attack Iran, and we can talk about that. Andrew says, if you ask Trump about any issue, he'll turn it back to the evils of illegal immigration. He and others truly seem obsessed. I don't think it's mostly political posturing, do you? Oh, no, it's definitely political posturing. Donald Trump figured out early on now, he hates immigrants, so there's no question about that, right? Particularly dark-skinned immigrants. I don't think he minds the ones that come in from Slovenia or Slovakia, wherever his wife is from. But he doesn't like immigrants from the South. But he figured out very early on that this resonates, and that this is the one issue he unequivocally wins American support. Like, if you ask Americans about their views on immigration, they are far more supportive of Trump than of Kamala. That's the one issue he unequivocally has over her, more than any other issue. There's just no other issue he has such a big gap over Kamala, and he knows that. So every issue he boils down to the thing he has the big advantage on. He's that good at marketing. So in a sense, it's posturing, it's marketing. He knows exactly what he's doing. Now, he might have already automatized it, so he's not thinking about it. He just does it because he knows it works. He's the ultimate, complete, unequivocal pragmatist, and he knows exactly how to do it. See you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.